Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another FIFA 21 video where today we have got some of the top tips for defending this year in FIFA in general, but also for FUT Champs specifically. So today hopefully you're going to be able to take away some good tips that are going to hopefully improve your defending no end and just give you some good tips on how to get the best out of your defending, because defending this year is pretty difficult. It's very easy to score goals and it is very difficult to keep not just clean sheets but kind of keep the goals down. So hopefully you'll take away some good tips for today. So starting off with tip number one, it is to have pacey defenders. Now this might not be something that everybody wants to do. Sometimes people want to play with the players that they want to play with. You can see a good screenshot here of just a typical standard meta team that I came up against yesterday in Division Rivals, and actually put it on my community tab yesterday, and it seems like a lot of people agree that this is like the typical standard meta team that you're probably going to come up against this weekend in FUT Champs. And specifically when you look at his defenders, he's got Varane and Gomez, especially at centre back, both with shadows on them, and that means his defenders, those two guys, have got about 95 pace in defence. So unless you've got like a Kylian Mbappe up front, going to be really difficult for you to outpace those defenders, and it just makes it much more easy to defend when you've got players of that pace, because then even when the ball does go in behind, you've got the players who can get back and recover. So having the pacey defenders, I think especially in the centre back role, is very important, because unfortunately, you know, people just, especially at the top end of FIFA, like for myself, I play in Division 1, I'm a Division 1 player, a lot of people do just go with the meta, and it's very difficult to compete with unless you combat it. You know, you have to combat it with those same equal players, which is not necessarily the way that everybody wants to play, but it's just the way the game falls. It's how most people want to play. Everybody wants to get the best advantage out of their players in their team and just to get the best results. So they're going to use the best players, and everybody just uses the pacey players. So you have to have the pacey defenders to give yourself the best chance to defend against them. Now, tip number two would be to have some more solid tactics. Now, if, for example, this is maybe what your tactics look like, you might look at that and think that's my tactics, that's how I play. Now, you might score plenty of goals playing this way, but if you're conceding a hell of a lot of goals, probably might need to tune a few things down. So maybe instead of playing press after possession loss, maybe just knock it down to balanced. You know, instead of playing on 5 depth, maybe just knock it down to 4. Just change maybe 1 or 2 settings in here. Just be a little bit more defensive, because if you're conceding, it is very difficult to not concede goals this year, no doubt about it, but it is not impossible to keep the goals down. Another thing that would be a good idea is if you're playing, for example, like we are here at 4-2-2, keep these fullbacks on stay back while attacking. You know, it will just give you a little bit more of a solid foundation to work from. You know, a lot of people like to have those fullbacks going forward on balance. I do as well, but I'm willing to risk that. You know, I'm willing to risk having those players going forwards. And if you're going to play with your fullbacks on balance, one thing you have to do, one thing that is an absolute must, you really have to be a very good one-on-one defender. We've said this a lot on the channel, you know, especially in our defending tutorials and some of our formation videos. If you're going to play with your fullbacks on balance, you are going to be left one-on-one, especially with your centre-backs. You're going to have to do a lot of one-on-one defending. So if you're not very comfortable 1v1 defending, then you want to have those fullbacks balanced, because if you struggle 1v1, you need to have the numbers back to help you. So only have those fullbacks going balanced if you are very confident. If you're not, keep them back and make the other little changes that we suggest. You know, maybe turn in that press off to a balance. You know, maybe just go one lower on the depth, just so you're not as open. Also, maybe switch to a more compact formation. So if you are struggling, like we said yesterday, 4-4-1-1 is an incredible formation. Maybe just look for a slightly more compact formation, just so that you don't concede as many goals. Tip number 3 would be to always try and cut the passing lanes. Now, for me, I would say as a player myself, this is probably the thing that I struggle with the most. You know, I struggle with cut passing lanes the most. I think it's a very difficult skill to do, but it's something that if you can improve at even just a little bit, it will make you a much better player. Trying to cut the passing lanes, because ultimately by cutting more passing lanes, you're going to have more possession. And one thing that I always try and do in my games, and you've seen it a lot in our gameplay, that we always try and dominate the possession. Now, I do that because that is just how I like to play, but I do that because my strength is attacking. So I want to get the ball to my attacking players. I don't want to have to be defending. I don't want to, if I have more possession, my opponent can't score. My strength is attacking like most people's in this game. So I want to have more of the ball. The more of the ball I have, the less of the ball my opponent has, the less opportunities there will be for him to score. If I have 65% of the ball, he's only got 35% of the ball. He's going to have to be careful with that ball, because if I'm cutting the passing lanes, if I'm winning the ball back real quick, he's not going to be able to create many opportunities. And the less opportunities he can create, the less goals he's going to score. So ultimately, trying to cut the passing lanes, it is a difficult skill to learn. And it is something that is very difficult. You just have to make sure that you try and cut the most obvious pass. So wherever you, if it was you, put yourself in their shoes, where would I pass it? And that's where you need to try and get a player in front of. And it is a difficult skill to master. But ultimately, if you can even improve it a little bit and just win 1 or 2 extra balls per game, you'll notice maybe a slight difference in your defending, that you won't be conceding as many chances. If you're not conceding as many chances, you're not going to be conceding as many goals. And then last but not least, it is kind of a no-brainer, but it is do not dive into tackles ever. Now, one thing that for me with defending, I stressed this before in our defending tutorial, it is to not tackle. Don't ever press the B button, the tackle button, the circle button on the PlayStation, unless you are convinced, unless you are 100% sure that you are, 1, that you are going to win the ball, or 2, you can dive into tackles as long as you've got cover behind you. If it's last man, do not dive into tackles, because if you don't get it, you're going to concede the goal. So the only time you should ever really dive into tackles is if you're 100% sure you can win the ball, or if you've got plenty of players behind you that if you do miss the tackle, it doesn't matter. Now, one real key thing with defending is, I stress this all the time, make sure you are jockeying when you are defending. It's going to help you out massively. Just make sure you jockey. Don't sprint jockey. Don't be holding the left trigger and the right trigger at the same time. I know it is like a difficult habit for some people to do, but when you are in your attacking area of the pitch, especially when you are in your final third, so when you're defending your box, make sure you let go of that sprint button and you are just moving around with the jockey button, because it's going to make it much easier for you to react to what the opponent does. Whereas when you're sprint jockeying, you're just going to be all over the place, and it's going to be much easier for the attacker to beat you. So make sure you do not dive into tackles unless you are certain you're going to win the ball, and make sure that you're always using that jockey button, because it's going to help you out massively when you are defending. But that is pretty much it for defending. It doesn't really get much more difficult than that. You know, that is kind of as easy as it is. It is simple as that. Just make sure you don't dive into tackles. Make sure you're jockeying all the time. Make sure you don't have a kamikaze formation where you are super open. That's really all you can do for defending. You know, it doesn't get any more specific than that. Attacking is more detailed because certain attacking patterns and whatnot. But that is pretty much, if you're doing those things for defending, that's pretty much all you can do. That's pretty much how you defend. So make sure you do really try and nail these tips, because there's not really any more tips to be able to give somebody to improve at defending. It's just, if you do these things, you're going to give yourself the best chance to at least limit the amount of goals you're scoring. So if you did enjoy the video and you would like to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It would be much appreciated. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. If you do have any questions you want to ask, or leave them in the comments. Make sure you do follow us on Twitch as well. If you would like to see us stream soon, do let me know in the comment section, because I do see that we are gathering some good followers now. So if you would like to see us stream, make sure you do let me know in the comment section if that's something you would like to see. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.